Any of you who watched last week's video heard me talking about how this is the first onset of autumn where I didn't feel this huge surge of motivation and this drive to get organized and start projects and like laying the groundwork for upcoming whatever it is, workshops and well, projects really, more specifically. I mean, less specifically. And I had said last week that as hard as it is for me to just kind of sit with things, I was going to attempt to do that and just see what that felt like and see what came to me, instead of fighting that and trying to force myself to come up with projects to get done. And it's not that I'm a really high-strung, super energetic person, because I'm really not. And I mean, when I'm on stage and I'm performing or I'm working with clients, I'm energetic and outgoing, but like on the day-to-day, I'm not a super high-strung person. And honestly, even when I'm feeling very anxious, I'm kind of more the kind of person that just wants to go and hide. curl up and hide. Basically, I'm not the kind of person who, goes to the gym for 3 hours and then plans tons of social engagements or things like that. I'm pretty low key that way, I would say, most of the time. So anyway, all that to say is that even when I was saying it in the video that I wanted to just sit with these feelings and see where that led me, I felt anxious, and I did actually manage the last week to really just sit with my feelings. And even that feels like too active of a description, because I didn't even try to reflect on what was going on. I just let things be. I just didn't force a project on myself. I didn't force myself to start writing to-do lists or plans or things like that. And the really cool thing that happened was then I just sort of spontaneously reached out to some people about some venues for a series of workshops, and I just spontaneously started brainstorming some ideas for some of the things that I want to share with you, and kind of spontaneously came up with some creative ideas and some writing material and things like that. And I still fought the temptation to get it all down on paper and start structuring a plan for any of it. I just allowed there to be space for ideas. I just let there be space for like creating, I want to say intellectually, but that's not the word I want to use. Just for creative thought. That's what I want to say. I just made space for creative thought unintentionally, and it was really cool. And slowly I'm starting to write things down bit by bit and kind of just reflect on what those ideas could look like if I nurture them, but I'm not forcing anything right now. And I will say, this probably won't surprise a lot of people, but it's just not something that comes naturally to me. It's been really nice and calming to not feel like I'm racing against time, and if I don't hurry up and do all of this stuff, I'm going to run out of time. But to not also be just completely paralyzed because I've given myself so many things to get done. So that's been really, really interesting and fun for me. I'm definitely the kind of person who needs structure. I have a bit of an agenda and to-do list obsession almost. So I definitely, and that's not fair. I shouldn't say obsession, but if I don't write things down and make plans, a lot of things will definitely fall through the cracks and not get done because I don't have the best memory and I do have a lot of ideas. So it's easy for me to get distracted and not actually follow through on some things and then feel sad later because I didn't actually finish that. So I will definitely start to add some structure to the ideas that I'm having, but it's just been really nice to make space for the ideas in the first place. Really just allowing some creative thought to flow. That's been really, really nice. It's definitely autumn here. The trees have all started changing colors and it's beautiful. The other night I almost turned the heat on because it was getting pretty nippy in the house at nighttime, but in the daytime we've actually been pretty lucky. There haven't been too many cold days, and I think today it's like 19 degrees or something outside. There's some wind, but the sky is blue and it just looks incredible with all the different colored leaves against the blue skies. And yeah, it's just so pretty and so gorgeous to go outside and walk in this weather, but still chilly enough that it's definitely like comfort food season and times for soups and stews and cozy things like that. So today I am sharing with you a roasted cauliflower pumpkin soup. I actually don't love pumpkin by itself, the taste of pumpkin by itself. I don't know why. I find it's a bit overpowering, kind of, the taste. I don't even know what it is that bothers me about it. I don't love it, but I do love it in bread or cookies or in a stew. I love it in a curry, and I definitely like it in a roasted cauliflower soup, and I hope that you do too. So if you try it, let me know in the comments what you thought of it, and if you made any changes or improved it in any way, I'd love to know what you did. The recipe calls for about 3 cups of cooked pumpkin or canned pumpkin. I had 3 mini pumpkins and I wanted to, well, I have them because I wanted to serve the soup in one of the pumpkins, or the 2 halves of one of the pumpkins. So I made sure that at least one of them was cut in half horizontally, and I cut the stem off of it also to make it more stable when I set it down and fill it up with soup so it doesn't topple over. I cleaned all of the seeds and stringy guts out of the pumpkin and I set those aside. And then I brushed my pumpkins with a bit of olive oil. You can season them with salt and pepper if you want, or you can just leave them the way they are because they're going into a soup afterwards anyway. It's entirely up to you. But I put them open side down on a parchment lined baking sheet, and I baked them until the pumpkin was very soft, but the outer shell was not wrinkled up and collapsing. First of all, it's not very practical if you're gonna fill it up with soup to have the bowl of the soup collapsing on it, and also it's just not very cute, is it? While my pumpkin was roasting, I gave my pumpkin seeds a good thorough rinse while pulling out all the extra bits of stringy flesh and pumpkin guts, and tried to get as much of that out as I possibly could, and rinse the seeds some more. And then I put them in a pot of water with a bit of salt and I let them simmer for about 5 minutes. Then I drained them and set them aside to cool. Once they were cool, I just added a bit of tamari to them and a touch of olive oil, and I spread those out on a parchment lined pan to pop into the oven until they were roasted after the pumpkins were finished baking. When my pumpkin seeds were in the oven roasting, I cut up some cauliflower. It doesn't matter how big the cauliflower pieces are because they're going to be blended up afterwards, but you have to keep in mind that the bigger the pieces, the longer the soup is going to take to cook. So I would cut them into kind of big bite-sized florets. I would season the cauliflower florets with some salt and pepper, maybe a bit of garlic, dehydrated garlic, and a bit of olive oil, and then roast that on a parchment-lined baking tray until golden and tender, so about half an hour. But as I said, it really depends on the size of your cauliflower, so keep an eye on it. The idea is not for your cauliflower to get all dried out and crispy. We just want it to be nice and golden and tender. My go-to ingredients for the base of this soup is some sage, thyme, salt, pepper, cinnamon, ginger, garlic, onions, and celery. I didn't have any celery. I used a citrus zester for the ginger to make sure that it was really tiny, because ginger can be very, very strong. I also cut the sage into very tiny pieces because sage can also be very overpowering and pungent. So it's not really something you want a big mouthful usually. I sauteed the onions in a bit of olive oil until the onions started to become translucent. And then I added my chopped garlic, thyme, and sage leaves, as well as the grated ginger. I stirred that until I could really smell the garlic, the ginger, and the spices coming through. And then I added some red chili flakes for a bit of heat, as well as about 4 cups of vegetable broth. I also added some salt and pepper and cinnamon. I feel like cinnamon gives everything kind of an autumnal, cozy flavor. Once the cauliflower was done, I added that to the soup, and then I scraped the flesh out of 2 of my pumpkins and added that to the soup as well. The pumpkins that I'm using for the bowls, I actually did not scoop very much of the flesh out of because I didn't want the sides of the bowl to collapse. So you have to leave a pretty good amount of the squash inside the shell to keep its shape and its form. But I did scrape out just a thin layer. Just do it very delicately so you can get as much of that pumpkin into the soup as possible without ruining your adorable little pumpkin bowls. I simmer the soup for probably about half an hour, I guess, so that the cauliflower can get really tender, as well as the pumpkin, and also so that all the flavors can really infuse into each other. After that, I put it aside to cool down to room temperature, and I put it in a high-speed blender. You can use any food processor, blender, NutriBullet, Vitamix, whatever works for you. Once the soup was blended really smooth, I returned it to the pot. I added some turmeric, mostly for color, but you know, it's cold and flu season, so you might as well give your immune system a little bump. And I also added some plant-based cream, not tons, just a little bit, maybe a 1/4 cup, just to add to that velvety creaminess of the soup. And once the soup was warm again, not hot, you don't want to boil it, but just, you know, the temperature you want to serve it at, I scooped that into those adorable little pumpkin shell bowls. I garnished mine with some pumpernickel croutons and some raw pumpkin seeds and served them, and they were delicious. Thank you all so much for watching this video. It means a tremendous amount to me, it really does. And I love that this little community is building. And I thank you for that. If you are a Patreon subscriber, thank you so much for believing enough in what I'm doing that you want to be a part of it or contribute to it. You are helping to make this channel possible. And I thank you and thank you and thank you. If you are someone who would like to work one-on-one with me for naturopathy or nutrition, there is a booking link in the description below. And I work with people virtually as well as live here in Montreal.